fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank you for listening, and please subscribe. Well, Isaiah Stewart was arrested for assault Wednesday for punching Phoenix backup center Drew Eubanks. And there's a lot that happened, and we still don't have all the details, but Phoenix police said that Stu was issued a citation and released. So Eubanks played in the game, and he didn't show any signs of being injured, but Shams had reported that Stewart and Eubanks were going chest to chest before a swing, and then Eubanks, he connected it with his face, and both men had to be separated by, there was a police presence there, and so not a good situation. And Eubanks had said that I got sucker punched. They were going chest to chest. So sucker punch I always think of as being um, when somebody's not looking. But I guess maybe they were chest to chest, jawing at each other. But I want to be careful here because we are fans and we love Isaiah Stewart and he's a good guy and he's one of the leaders of our team. But it's wrong to punch somebody. But still, I mean, we're obviously, you know, my natural tendency is to defend Stu, but Eubanks said that he sucker punched him, but it sounds like if they were chest to chest, he didn't necessarily sucker punch him. He still shouldn't have punched him. So this happened at like 4:45. The game was started at 7. This is Phoenix time, but they were like they said in the tunnel, but it was like near the parking where there's the indoor parking lot in the arena. But here, anyway, the big thing that I have learned is that November 5th, when we played the Suns, that throughout that game there was a lot of extra aggression between Stewart and Eubanks, and there was a lot of words being said throughout the game. So this, I think, is obvious. Going back to that was caused by that, and then they bumped into or ran into each other while they were warming up and getting ready to play, and then they started saying more words, and then it boiled over. And we all know by watching, if you watch Stu play every game, he plays with a lot of heart and a lot of passion, and he is physical and he's aggressive and he does things kind of like little Ricky Mahorn that used to do, or Lambier, where they kind of nudge people and push people, and they don't back down from anybody, and they're extra physical. So I just see that you know Stu is a little bit like the Incredible Hulk. I don't know if you've ever followed the Incredible Hulk, but he's a Marvel comic character, and he's this mild-mannered Bruce Banner, and then something would trigger in his head, and this normal like person would, his clothes would burst out, and he would turn green, and he would turn into this incredible, superpowered character. And so anyway, that's a little bit what Stu seems like, and we all got to see when he and went after LeBron. He got suspended for 2 games. LeBron only got 1 game. But when they try to hold Stu back, they calmed him down, and Cade grabbed a hold of him, and he seemed to be calmed down. And then Stu just rips out away from him and starts chasing after LeBron. And so he runs on high. He has this extra, you know, something in him that makes him go crazy sometimes. But hopefully this all turns out. He hasn't been playing for a while, and it's the All-Star break, and so that he was expected back to play afterwards. But I'm sure the NBA is going to suspend him. Who knows how long he's going to get suspended, but it'll be interesting. But um, anyway, I'm going to do another podcast on Saturday, and after the Rising Star game is on TNT at 9 o'clock Friday, and so Ivy and Duran are going to be playing in it, so that should be fun to watch. But there's just more interesting things. The officers interviewed both players and a number of people who witnessed the incident, and they said there was argument and it escalated, and then they saw Stewart punch Eubanks, causing minor injuries. And there was, when during the game, you didn't notice that there was anything on Eubanks where where there was bruising or a cut lip or anything like that. But still, that said that he was injured. It says both men were separated by security, which ended the fight, and that the NBA is investigating, and the police are still continuing the investigation. So don't know where it's going to go from here. But it's unfortunate. It doesn't need to happen, and it's Kevin Durant said that keep the game first. There's a lot of noise, and he said it's unfortunate what happened before the game, and it's supposed to be a brotherhood. And I'm always amazed at these NBA players, and they sometimes they go at it and they get physical with each other, they get aggressive, and it seems like they're mad at each other. And then you see them after the game and they hug each other. And it used to not be that way back in Lambeer and Mahorn's days. People they hated each other. They didn't want anything to do with each other. They would never hug or any of that stuff together. But he says I understand dudes get into stuff. Durant said we try to avoid this in this league. Hopefully we can move on from it. And then he said we all support Drew, but. Monty said afterwards that he thought it was irresponsible of the Suns. They basically just blamed Stewart and said, and so he saw it until there was more into the investigation. But it just sounds like two guys that had gotten in a fight or arguments, in that game November 5th, and it just still spilled over, and then they started talking, and then it just continued to escalate, and they're right in each other with testosterone going on, and so. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But anyway, it was a bad game for us. We played really poorly, and like I said, there's the excuse, and I've seen it happen throughout my lifetime where teams that are at the end of a road trip and with like an all-star break looming where you're going to go on a extended break, like I said with my kids at school before Christmas break, they were always wild. Before spring break, they were always jacked up. Before summer break, they always jacked up. And it's the same thing. Like I said, I heard college coaches have said before they go on Christmas break or after a long road trip, teams lay an egg sometimes, and that's kind of what happened. But we have a lot to look forward to the rest of the season, and we certainly are not going to be the worst team in NBA history like many of us worried that could possibly happen. But since January 15th, we've had the 19th best net rating, which is, we still haven't won as many games as we'd like to, but we have a good 19th best out of 30. So that doesn't include the last two games, though. So I guess that is always up and down. That can always change. But we just have to see what Monty's going to do with the rotations. We have, too many players. He can't possibly, he's probably going to play more than 10. I mean, he's probably going to play at least 10. And that's, in my guesstimation, I'd rather see 9. And I think that he's going to probably start Cade, Ivy, Fontecchio, Stu when he's eligible, and Duran, and then that leaves us Sasser and Grimes and Asar and Troy Brown Jr. and Muscala, or this is a trick. So that's all those guys I listed. That's 10 guys right there, and then there's Fournier and Shake Milton and Wiseman, and so that's 13 guys. And so he can't play 13 guys, I hope, and it's going to be important what Monty does the rest of the year with the rotations. And again, the priority has to be the core four and even the other young guys that they get plenty of playing time. And so he's just going to have to rule out guys, even though they might deserve a shot. You just can't play 13 guys. And so that is going to be what we have to look forward to. I probably will jump on during the break sometimes. If any news breaks or there's anything I think is significant. But yeah, bad news for Stu. Hopefully things get resolved. Hopefully he doesn't get suspended too many games. Hopefully he can control himself and his anger issues. And anyway, it's just unfortunate. So, but thank you for listening. And again, still get ticked off. The NBA showed highlights of that game, and they do it all the time. NBA TV, they show the highlights of the Piston'S game, and all the highlights are of the Suns. There's like 8 highlights, and they're all Suns highlights. Even they had Bol 2 highlights of Bol, and he's not even a normal rotation player for them. And they showed Saben Lee's dunk. They didn't show Cade dunk block Saben Lee's dunk, which was an amazing play. It's a greater play than dunking the ball. Blocking a dunk and not getting a foul call was amazing. And Cade did that. And all the great dunks and plays that Asar had, can't show one of them. Usually they show one Piston highlight at least, but that's just, we got to get this turned around so that we're playing good. And I think Grimes and Fontecchio are going to be key components to that turnaround, and we got to see how they get integrated into the team. But it's just going to be a fascinating last 28 games. We only have 28 games. I'm going to be heartbroken that the season's over, because I love watching the games, even though, like, again, last night in the Laker game, those were disappointing, very disappointing. So, but thank you for listening. Please subscribe, be the reason that somebody feels cared for, and go Pistons.